Hey guys, Tech Guy 1 here again, coming to you with a new video. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Like and subscribe for more content. Let's keep this train rolling. Hey guys. So today's video, I'm going to try to do something that I have struggled with doing for the past couple months, which is a completely unbiased review and comparison of Windows 10 and Windows 11 running on physical hardware. So right now what we're doing is we're staring at a benchmark test on a relatively older machine. Now this machine by no means is slow. This machine has quite a bit of horsepower actually. So we're going to go to system real quick so we can take a look at that. But as you can see, it's an i7, it's an 8th gen processor. It is 24 gigs of RAM. It's running Windows 10 Pro 22H2. This particular machine is a MSI laptop, gaming laptop with a 1050 Ti NVIDIA video card. And it's been with me since it was new, and I believe I purchased it in 2017, maybe 2016. So it's got some age. This machine is really just a backup machine at this point. Basically sits in a closet. So I reformatted it, put Windows 10 on it, ran all the updates on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to benchmark this system with Windows 10. Then we're going to do an upgrade to Windows 11. And once we have Windows 11 installed on this particular machine, at that point, what we're going to do is we are going to do another benchmark on it. And we're going to compare the numbers. Now, I realize that when it comes to gaming, you get the later DirectX driver configuration in Windows 11. But if you lose 50% of the actual system's performance going to Windows 11, is it really worth the additional driver? Now, some people will probably say, yes, it is worth that additional driver. Me personally, since I use the machines that I have for more than just gaming, as you could tell from the videos, I use them more than just for gaming. It's more important for me for performance aspect of speed of the machine versus just the performance aspect of gaming, especially if it's your only machine. Or if you're in a situation where you're trying to figure out whether or not you should upgrade the machine to Windows 11 or just stick with Windows 10 and then eventually buy new hardware if you decide you want to go with Windows 11. This should really give us a better understanding of performance and what you should really expect if you do upgrade an 8th gen processor to Windows 11. Now again, this is an i7, 24 gigs of memory, which isn't bad for a laptop, which is what this is. We're remote desktoped into this machine right now, so it is physical hardware versus our typical virtualization testing. So let's run our test and see what this thing actually looks like once we get our results, which is probably going to be pretty terrible because it is an 8th gen processor. And we are, what, on 15th gen now? So I expect it to be not great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kick this off and run the benchmark. And this is probably going to take some time to finish. And once it completes, I'll kick the video back off and we could jump in here and take a look to see what this actually looks like. Okay guys, so this just finished, and as we could see, it's pretty much terrible, just like we had suspected it would be. Again, this is not a new machine. I mean, when it was new, it was actually a pretty top performer machine, but at this point, that was a long time ago. Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit further. So we're just going to click on OK. We don't really need to upload that. You know, nobody needs to compare this to anything. So if we look at the Passmark itself, we could see that we're in a pretty terrible rating. I mean, honestly, probably want to be in this area here, at least when it comes to a gaming machine, especially, you know, for as expensive as this thing was when it was new. If it was here when it was new, it would have been mind-bogglingly painful. But at any rate, so that's where we sit right now. Is pretty low on the scale for the Passmark. The CPU mark is pretty low. Again, we're looking at a 8th gen processor, which is ancient. And you know, if we look at all the actual benchmarks here, you know, screenshot them if you want. We can do the 2D mark, which is also equally as terrible. The 3D mark is pretty god-awful too. As you can see, DirectX 12, we're at 18. The memory mark is pretty high, but again, it's because as far as memory is concerned, we are running 24 gigs of RAM, which, you know, that does help. And then we have our disk mark, which is about as bad as it gets. So this machine just has a SATA drive. It did support NVMe drives. However, the NVMe slot in the actual system board is bad. So right now, all it has is the SATA drive. It is a Evo, I believe it's an Evo Samsung terabyte drive, which is not awful, but I mean, the IOPS is pretty god-awful. The sequence writes. I mean, it is genuinely not a fast machine by today's standards. But this is important to keep this in mind, that this machine is not fast, even with Windows 10. But on Windows 10, it is snappy, it's functional, everything works fine. I mean, you really don't notice any latency with the operating system. So I mean, if we went into performance here, you know, we wanted to show the logical processors. I mean, we do have, you know, 12 cores. We are running 24 gigs of memory, running about 5 gigs of memory utilization, but we did just run a fairly heavy test on the system for benchmark. So that's probably about average as to what we would see. We do see the Ethernet connection. That's likely Windows updates at this point pump into this machine. We do have the NVIDIA, and it is a GTX 1050. I think I said it was a 1050 Ti before. It's not. It's just a 1050. I misspoke. I'm sorry about that. But you can see that it's not super hot. I mean, you know, it is a relatively good machine for Windows 10. But let's take a look at what this looks like once we're on Windows 11. So I think what we'll do is we'll screenshot this thing. So we'll go back to this as our primary, right? So we can screenshot the actual result. We'll save it to the desktop. We'll do an in-place upgrade to Windows 11. And then we'll run this again and see what those numbers look like. Do you think they'll get worse? Do you think they'll get better? Leave a comment down below before you continue on. Hey guys, so I figured for the sake of this video, maybe what I should do here is include how to do the actual in-place upgrade to Windows 11 without having to go through the Windows update process. So the first thing you want to do is go to the actual Microsoft website and download the ISO file for the latest version or the latest build of Windows 11. So in this case, it's Windows 11 24H2. Once you have it downloaded, just put it somewhere that's not your download location, like create a folder somewhere in like the root of C drive. So for mine, I always use like the tools directory. And then I copy the actual ISO file directly to the tools directory. And if you want to, you could show the file names and extensions so that way you can see the .iso. The next thing you're going to do is open up command prompt as admin. I always change directory. I'm going to do CLS in order to us to clear so that way we start as a fresh cursor. Now, if you're not using a healthy operating system, you can run the dism command to actually run the health or the health check first, which is just DISM. Online, cleanup, image, restore health. So if you run that, it'll clean up the image, it'll restore the health of the operating system, make sure the operating system itself is in the best possible shape that it could be before it does the upgrade. So that will correct any driver issues or any breaks or any issues in the actual image itself of the Windows operating system. Obviously, make sure you have all your Windows updates done. Make sure that you've already rebooted to install the updates. Make sure that you don't have anything pending as far as updates are concerned on your Windows 10 machine before you go through this. Because if not, you could reduce the risk of it running and installing successful. So once you have that run and you reboot, you get back into the system. At that point, we're going to go through the dism commands to actually do the install. So what you want to do is you're going to want to go to where you have your ISO file, right-click and do Mount. And once you do that, it's actually going to mount it as the DVD drive. So you'll see it. It could be the D drive, the E drive, the F drive. Doesn't really make any difference. You're going to want to go to Sources. And in Sources, you're going to look for install.wim. So W-I-M. You're going to look for that file and confirm that that file exists. Then you're going to bring over your command prompt again. And we're going to do the dism command to add the install wim. So for mine anyway, it's just dism get wim info, and then it's /wim file :d /sources and then install wim. So it's going to be the path to wherever that actually exists. So D sources, and there's the install WIM. Once you have that done, you're just going to hit the Enter key on the keyboard. And you'll see the operation completed successful. And it shows you specifically what the upgrade availability is on the actual install WIM, like what versions we can upgrade to. You want to confirm that, just because if you're like running Windows 11 Home and you don't have in the WIM configuration of the ISO you downloaded the availability of Windows 11 Home, it won't do the in-place upgrade. So once you have that confirmed, what we're going to do is we're going to now do the in-place upgrade command. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do the next DISM command, which we could see here, which is just the DISM online apply image file. And they're going to do the D drive again for the sources, and then the install.wim, which is the file again. And they're going to do /index, colon, and then the number. So you'll see here that we're going to have like index 9 is Windows 11 Pro Education. Index 10 is going to be like Windows 11 Pro for Workstation. So you want to match whatever that index is with whatever the operating system you're currently running is. So for this sake, we're going to do index 6. This is Pro. And then we're going to do apply directory and then C:/. Now that's the directory where Windows is currently installed. So local disk C, like we could see here. And then once you do that, you're just going to execute the command. Okay, guys, so we're back up now on Windows 11. Same operating system, well, I mean the same system at least. We'll take a look at that real quick. I realized that I forgot to click on the Enter key on the keyboard before I cut the video off, but this is the end result of running that command. So I do want to point something out, that if you're the type of person that doesn't necessarily want to use the command line, you can download the ISO file from Microsoft's website, and then once you get the ISO file and you put it into your directory, you'll right-click on it and you'll choose Mount. Once you have it mounted, all you have to do is double-click on the executable or right-click on the executable and do Run as Administrator. And the first screen you'll get is the option to do an in-place upgrade and keep all of your files, and then you can do the install that way as well. The reason why you would use the command line over using the GUI to actually do the install is that in the command line you get the options for which operating system you want to upgrade to. So if you're on Windows 10 Home and you want to upgrade to Windows 10 Pro, or Windows 10 Home and you want to upgrade to Windows 11 Pro, or if you want to change it from Home to like Workstation or something like that, you could do it through the DISM command, so you don't have to do the in-place upgrade after you do the install. Now, I'll also point out that generally speaking, I would never suggest doing an upgrade versus a replace. So for instance, mounting this with like Rufus to a thumb drive and then doing the install off the thumb drive and starting from scratch, that's a much better idea from a performance standpoint, because generally when you do an upgrade, you're not replacing files. Like for instance, we have Windows Old here, and then we have the Windows directory. The Windows Old directory is going to be most of our Windows 10 configuration. And I don't know what this actually is in terms of size. In some of the versions of Windows, so it's got size. So it's basically the entire operating system that existed in the Windows directory from the old version. And then we also have the one from the new. So you're going to chew, 5-10 gigs of drive space that you don't necessarily need to chew up. Now, the license that Microsoft provides is such that you technically can't do the fresh install until after you do the upgrade. And even then, sometimes, like on Windows 7 to Windows 10, you couldn't do that. So if you had to reformat Windows 10, you had to reinstall Windows 7 first to do the upgrade to 10. It's not the best practice. So keep in mind that if you do an upgrade, you're already starting off worse than you would be if you just stuck with Windows 10. And I'm not, again, trying to be negative towards Windows 11 in this particular video anyway. I think anybody else has watched any of my other videos know how I feel about Windows 11. But with that said, you are going to start off with less storage if you do this. You're also moving whatever problems you had with Windows 10 into the Windows 11 platform. So things will follow it. So if you had a ton of stuff and Windows 10 was slow, and then you install Windows 11, Windows 11 will be slower. That's just something to keep in mind. There's also the thing support, right? So this particular machine, we upgraded to 24H2, but an 8th gen processor technically doesn't support 24H2. The 8th gen processor dies with 23H2. You could run Windows 11 on it. it'll pass the test for compatibility. However, you won't get driver updates. So in the event that Windows releases something, some kind of security update on the operating system, you run the risk of causing either a blue screen or just an incompatibility issue with the operating system. So that's something very important to keep in mind, that if you decide to upgrade, those are some caveats that go with upgrading. So let's pull open, of course. I'll try Paint, I guess. So this was our benchmark from our Windows 10 configuration of the same platform. Now we're going to right-click on this thing and we're going to go to System. So you can see it is still the lazy gamer machine. It is still the 8th gen processor. It's still 24 gigs of memory. It is Windows 11 24H2. Installed today. You can see that down here in the clock. Calendar, time, date. We could see the build information here, so we know what it is. It is Windows 11 Pro. So let's do another benchmark on this thing and see if this number is the same when we're doing it on a Windows 11, which is basically just the out-of-the-box configuration at 10 with the upgrade. Let's see if this changes. What do you guys think? I'm curious myself. Okay, guys, we're back now. We just finished the performance test on the Windows 11 system, and I actually have a screenshot here on the screen showing the Windows 10 results on the exact same system. So what you're going to see is that we've lost performance on the CPU. We've lost performance on the 2D graphics. We've majorly lost performance on the 3D graphics. We're actually half. So we have half the performance on the 3D graphics on Windows 11 versus Windows 10. The memory mark is about the same, and the disk is really pretty close to the same. But as far as the video card is concerned, we've lost substantial performance. So the performance test indicates that while we're on the same system, generally speaking, based off of the results, the Windows 10 system for gaming, even taking into consideration the DirectX drivers, would be twice as fast. You would get twice as much performance of that video card on Windows 10 versus Windows 11. So I did just take a look, and I checked the website for Passmark, which is the tool that we're using here to run the test. And Passmark's website indicates that they do not take into consideration OS version. So in other words, if you run the Passmark test on like a Windows 7 machine, a Windows 10 machine, and a Windows 11 machine, the results aren't based off of the operating system. So in other words, if you're running like a 16th or 15th gen on a Windows 7 machine and you run the test, the Windows 7 machine won't automatically show the results being higher than they should be based off of the chip that it's running on. It's based on the hardware, not the software. So, and if you're running on Windows 7, it's going to compare it to Windows 10 and 11 machines as well, because it's based off of the hardware that you're testing, not the operating system you're testing on. So with that said, this number that exists here and this lower result is actually a result of the operating system. It's not a result of the hardware. So the operating system has caused the latency, the slowness. So I think based off of this statistics, knowing that you would lose 50% of your value of your video card running Windows 11 versus Windows 10, to me it's not worth the difference in the DirectX driver. Let me know down in the comments if you guys feel differently, because I'd be interested in knowing if you guys think that it's worth it for the updated driver on Windows 11 to lose 50% of the resources on your CPU, probably about 30% on your graphics, and then 50% on your 3D rendering. Is it worth it to get that additional DirectX driver, or is it worth it just to run your Windows 10 machine with the same configuration? So this is a side-by-side shot with the screenshot that we took from the actual operating system versus what I took from the video from earlier on. So you can see, again, disk is pretty close. Memory rate, pretty close. Actually, we get quicker memory. Well, no, we don't. Never mind. I take that back. That's an 8, not a 9. So we do lose some memory performance. We lose a lot of 3D rendering performance. So our IOPS are going to be probably god-awful on this. Our 2D mark is lower. Our CPU mark is lower. We're in the red now versus before when we were in the yellow. Again, even that little bit is a little bit more helpful as far as performance is concerned of the actual operating system. So I do want to point out something because I'm sure somebody will make a comment about it, about DirectX 12 on a 1050 card. It is supported by the API, but it's not ultimately supported by the full graphics configuration. So yes, you can run it. No, you're not going to get the full benefit of running it as if you were running like a modern video card. But again, this is not a test for that. This is a test for people that already have pre-purchased hardware, and it's an 8th gen. We discovered that at the beginning. So knowing now that the 8th gen, if you don't have money for a new piece of hardware, Windows 11 is now becoming the maintained operating system. Do you guys think it's worth it to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11, knowing that you're going to lose performance of the actual processor and the actual, well, all around everything? You're going to lose performance. So Windows 11 itself is going to be a slower operating system. Now, after we ran the test on the last operating system, we did check the task manager to see what we were actually utilizing as far as resources are concerned. And you'll see we're actually using less. So our Windows 11 24H2 was actually using less resources than our Windows 10 machine. However, more time has passed, so it's possible that we've kind of trimmed off some of the fat of the operating system. We have also increased heat. It's actually hotter on the GPU now for the Windows 11 operating system. I suspect that's because Windows 11 is more graphically intense, just even as running the desktop. We also have a lot more open on the desktop. But otherwise, I mean, realistically, what do you guys think? I'm really interested in knowing what you guys think, because I'm assuming that there's probably quite a bit of you guys out there that use your Windows machines for gaming, especially since you watch all the customized videos that I make. I'm really curious, on a vanilla version of Windows 11, is it worth upgrading Windows 10 to Windows 11 for gaming purposes on something that's an older piece of chip or chip-based of hardware? Do you guys find the benefit of the updated drivers worth it to decrease the performance by 50% versus the similar Windows 10 machine? I'd really like to hear more from your guys' perspective. Add something down in the comments. Let me know also if you're planning on upgrading to Windows 11, especially after seeing this. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, guys, take it easy.